Hey, I'm singer-songwriter Nick DiMatteo, and welcome to Music is Not a Genre's PODFAST. This is PODFAST number 36, Charts versus Streaming. What are the real hits? Very excited for this topic because I touch on it in a lot of other episodes, and now I'm giving it a full treatment. I have been away, by the way, so I'm still quote-unquote recovering from vacation, which means I'm trying to get back into work mode. So I'm starting with a PODFAST here for that reason and many reasons. Really to kind of get back in gear. And again, I'm excited about this topic. As always, thank you for watching and listening. Listeners, go to youtube.com/music/@music is not a genre. You get a video for every episode of this podcast. Watchers, go to nickdimatteo.com/music is not a genre if you would rather just listen. And everyone, please take a moment out to go to patreon.com/music is not a genre to support this podcast, my band Rec, and everything I do for as little as $1 a month. And it doesn't just start there. You can keep it there forever if you would like. You can try it for free for a week and see if you like it at all. And then sign up for $1 a month. Maybe eventually you'll go to $5 or $10 a month like some of my patrons, 25 even. Some of them do. Anything, though, makes a big difference. And, of course, like, share, subscribe, rate, review, and all that good stuff, and tell one other person about this podcast. Someone you think is a music lover who loves all kinds of music. I think they'd really be into it, and your word of mouth does more for promoting this podcast and indie creations in general than just about anything else. The only other announcement is I just got off the week before vacation an epic Rec concert where I did a live video solo presentation. I am creating music videos for every song on Rec's epic album, Kite to Camden. That is 14 music videos and one long video that covers the entire album, a video album, if you will. And I know you will. And for all of that, go to youtube.com/@RecBandNYC, and Rec is spelled R-E-C. So it's RecBandNYC, all one word. You get all those music videos, and you'll get some video clips from the live concert as well. So let's get back to the topic. This is PODFAST number 36, Charts versus Streaming. What are the real hits? And so why I'm doing this, again, at some point in every episode of MxG that discusses artists, I mention which of their albums and singles charted. And I've done that in other episodes as well. And for that, I tend to be traditionalist and use the Billboard charts, mostly from the US, occasionally from other countries. The more I do that, the more I have been noticing something, which is the songs that were the biggest chart hits in their day, or currently now, if you look back on the charts and that's where it stands, are rarely the same song that's the artist's biggest streaming hit. So that fact prompted me to let's set the record straight here and do an entire episode on this, because for me, again, I'm thinking of charts the way I've thought of them all of my life. Now you'll find that charts do take into account streaming, and we'll get into that later, how these are calculated, how they've been calculated through history and all of that. But right now in today's world, and it has been for, years now, really looking at the highest streaming numbers for a song is how you find out what an artist's most popular song is. So, I'm going to do that format. Quick history of how the most popular music has been quantified from the last 100 years or so. Big artists by decade whose original hits differ from their streaming hits. And that's an important distinction. Only those artists whose original hits differ from their streaming hits, and the bigger artists, because if I got into the weeds with the smaller artists, we'd be here for days and days. And I will weigh in on which I think deserves to be the top hit, whether it's streaming or the original chart hit. Conclusions, including a discussion of why this difference happens so often. There are many reasons why. Featured song and questions. Sources for this are Billboard, Wikipedia, Google, Spotify, which, again, I haven't transitioned away from Spotify because to recreate all of those playlists would take forever. And I know there are apps that do that, but they don't quite do it the way they say they will. There's still a lot of manual labor there. So, I'm working on it. But for now, that's what I listen to. That's what I got. Disclaimers. I'm choosing a cross-section of artists from different genres in each decade. So I'm certainly going to leave out a bunch. I'm only covering artists whose biggest chart hits are different from their biggest streaming hits, significantly enough that it warrants a conversation about it. I'm not going to mention every big hit for an artist, either original or streaming, just a couple from each that illustrate the overall point. I'm not covering, again, lesser-known artists, though I know for sure their hits differ too. And as you can probably guess, I'm covering singles and not albums. I'm sure there are differences in which album charted the highest in its day and which album charted the highest now. I don't think there is many differences for many reasons. But again, that's a different discussion and it's related, but I'm going to stick with singles. I will be biased, including on not really enjoying the oft-used term legacy hit. I think it's fine. You understand. It's the hit that it endures to this day. I don't like the idea that that's the artist's legacy. And I think it's an overused term, so I think that may be the last time you hear it in this episode, because it implies other hits and are less valid as well as the rest of the artist's career. Finally, I will discuss how charts themselves are often biased and or unduly influenced by industry forces and or money, and have been since the beginning. That's not new. It's not just a Spotify thing or streaming thing, but I will not let that detract from this discussion as a whole, since we have the numbers we're given, however they happen to come about, and regardless of where they came from. And there's no other way to measure hits that's nearly as efficient or effective. So, we got what we got, basically. Let's get into this first section, how hits are measured. So prior to the recorded era of music, which I usually mark as the 1920s because that's when records and record players became more widely available and affordable, popularity was measured by sheet music sales, and there were no charts to speak of. You can check back on my episode on the history of music magazines, which was one of my favorites. I really enjoyed that, to learn more about what I'm about to say and what I just said and more, and all about, how charts came about and that kind of journalism. But for now, I'm going to skip to the 1930s. That's when Billboard, which was first published in 1894, published its first charts, 1936, though it wouldn't feature national charts until 1940. So, good start. And by 1940, they were doing national charts. Those charts tracked retail record sales, reported by each retailer, so about as accurate as that could be, jukebox plays, and radio plays. By that year, in 1940, Billboard had become the standard bearer of charts, the one everyone looked to determine how well a song or an album was doing. And though other magazine charts would gain enough popularity to become a name, such as for many decades Cashbox was a rival to Billboard, biggest rival, Billboard still to this day remains the standard, albeit with changes in how the hits are calculated. In 1958, Billboard debuted the Hot 100, which combined those different charts of retail sales and radio play into one set of numbers. So it was more of a global accounting of what the most popular song was. You notice jukeboxes didn't figure into that. I don't know if that was the case because they weren't as important or if that was just something that was missing in my notes. This is how hits were measured, by the way, from 1958 and for over the next 3 decades. Then, in 1991, Billboard adopted Nielsen SoundScan and Nielsen broadcast data systems. SoundScan measures sales via barcode scans. SoundScan, the barcode was, introduced shortly before then. The second one, broadcast data systems, measured plays on radio, TV, film, commercials, etc., and eventually the internet. So SoundScan, by the way, which is now a company called Luminate, Luminate, I assume, is still the most widely used measurement of hits. Though again, how the hits are measured has changed, of course, because they account for streaming now. In the 2000s, Billboard gradually started incorporating digital downloads into their numbers. Downloads, not yet streaming. This was in the 2000s. In the 2010s, they started counting streams. These would often be counted as on a par with radio play and physical sales. But a good friend of mine, Steve Erickson, who has helped with some of the notes here, and I will mention him again later, frequent contributor to this podcast, ask the question, exactly what percentage are all of those things? Radio play, physical sales, streaming, and I don't know the answer. If you know the answer, please comment. But by the 2020s, streaming has become the main way popularity is measured, in part because there are so many fewer sales of any kind, physical or digital, and far fewer people listen to the radio, although we still do. That said, it's still Billboard, in cooperation with Luminate SoundScan, that we look to. And today's numbers are a combo of on-demand streaming, digital downloads, physical sales, and radio airplay, which all makes sense to me. I'd say today's numbers are probably the most accurate we've ever had because of digital technology. And you know, that's just, as much as you like or dislike the dawn of the digital age, and it's been here quite a while now, and what has it done to music, and et cetera, accuracy, I think, has increased across the board, despite what naysayers might say about fudging numbers, et cetera. That is exceedingly rare, like exceedingly rare, whether we're talking about voting or anything else. This is the most accurate era we've lived in, and I'm sure it'll get more accurate. And that gradual increase in accuracy is one reason why an artist's original hits are different from their streaming hits. There are other reasons, which we'll get to in the conclusions. But for now, let's get into the meat of the matter, decade by decade. So I'm going to go, again, from the 1950s is kind of where I start with pretty much all of my historic podcasts when it comes to recorded music, because it's one of the markers when numbers reporting also became more accurate. Again, 1958, that combined number. Though I will cover artists from many genres, I'm going to limit the list for each decade, because otherwise we'll be here for hours, and nobody wants that. Or do you? Because I'm thinking of doing a live Music Is Not a Genre in the New York City area, maybe at the Bell House, I don't know, or a private curtain where the Crane Theater used to be. I don't know, but I want to record a live Music Is Not a Genre episode featuring guests and all of you out there asking questions. Thinking of doing that for season 9. One more note before we get into it. One of the biggest surprises in researching this topic was that there are actually, these that I'm listing are actually exceptions rather than rules. So most artists' hits were tops then and now. Their chart hits and their streaming hits, with a few small, really statistically insignificant discrepancies, are the same. The majority of artists, their hits are the same, which is what makes this so interesting, because these are the exceptions, they kind of stand out. And some of them you will have heard of and others you will not have heard of. So here we go. I expected to find far more examples, honestly. And I even worried that this episode wouldn't be able to cover them all and I'd have to do much longer, whatever. And then I discovered that what's considered news, quote unquote, is rarely newsworthy. It's clickbait, it's whatever it is. And, a lot of the sources that I've used and searches and things would pop up, oh, this song has more streaming numbers, whatever. And then you take a look and the difference is super insignificant. So, since we're jump driving into the 1950s, here is a timely example of this. Buddy Holly's biggest hit was That'll Be the Day, while his most streamed, the Crickets, is Every Day. But the difference is negligible, 144 million to 114 million. I mean, for artists like me, it's not negligible, but yeah, for a popular artist, it's not enough to make a point of it. And there are dozens and hundreds of artists just like that are not going to be on this list. Now, of course, if there's one I left off and you're like, how could you do that? Please tell me, and I will put it in a future catch-up episode. But this is what we're going with for today. 1950s. Nat King Cole, his original highest chart hit of his many number ones, Mona Lisa, 1950, probably ranks as the most prominent and memorable. Mona Lisa, man have named you, or something like that. I don't know. Unforgettable actually reached number 12 the following year, 1951. Streaming, his highest hit is L-O-V-E. L is for the way you look at me. 1964, which was a B-side that originally only reached number 81, but now has over 390 million streams, as compared to Unforgettable, which has a little over 223 million streams, and Mona Lisa, only 41 million streams. And as far as which one I prefer, I'm going to go with streaming here, L-O-V-E. Even though I love all those other songs, One of my favorites of his is When I Fall in Love. And Mona Lisa, and I forget, all great stuff. I'm going to give the edge to streaming here, LOVE. And in the conclusions, we'll see which one wins, streaming or original. Next one, 50s, Ella Fitzgerald. Her original hit, a couple of number ones. I'm going to go with A Tisket, A Tasket. A tisket, a tasket. I lost my yellow basket in 1938. Number one, streaming. Her highest is Dream a Little Dream of Me with Louis Armstrong, which was from 1950. That has over 415 million streams. Compared with Tisket in just under 7 million. Hugely different there. Hugely different. And Dream a Little Dream of Me did not chart nearly as high as, the original Tisket a Tasket or her other number ones. Okay, so this is tough because these are very different songs, but I've generally enjoyed Tisket a Tasket a little more, so I'm going to go with original. Hit wins out on this over streaming. One for streaming, one for original. I'm going to stop tallying and we'll get to the numbers and the conclusions. Another 1950s artist, Elvis. His original highest hit, It's Now or Never. It's Now or Never. 1960, based on There's No Tomorrow, based on O Sole Mio, based on a Neapolitan folk song, which I don't know those words. It was a giant global hit. It was number one Billboard in many, many, many countries. His highest streaming hit, Can't Help Falling in Love. Wise men say. Yes, a big hit in its time, but not nearly as dominant as the first song in its time. Yet now, Can't Help Falling in Love has 1.3 billion streams, as compared to 10 times less than that, under 113 million streams for It's Now or Never. This one, I got to give it to streaming. It's Now or Never is a great song. It really showcases how good of a singer Elvis was. But I Can't Help Falling in Love. I've loved the various covers and UB40 and Corey Hart and all of that stuff. I got to go with streaming. Also, last note of the 1950s, the doo-wop, early rock, and R&B acts all pretty much have the same hits in both categories. That's why they're not being mentioned. 1960s. Sinatra's original number hit, now lots of number ones, of course, through his career, but I'm going to stick with this decade because Strangers in the Night in 1966 was a huge hit, one of his absolute biggest. Streaming, his biggest hit is Fly Me to the Moon, which was released in 1964, but not as a single. That has over 855 million streams, with My Way not far behind at over 753 million streams. Regrets! My Way reached only number 27, by the way, originally. Strangers, that original hit, has over 337 million streams. That is far lower than 855 or 753. Tough here, but I'm going to give the edge to Fly Me to the Moon. One of my favorites from his, so streaming. Beatles. One of the reasons I'm doing this topic, and one of the most famous discrepancies here, is this Beatles discrepancy. The original, so many number ones, but I'm going to go with the top two as listed anyway, which are I Want to Hold Your Hand from 1964, in the US anyway, and Hey Jude, 1968. Streaming, though, you may already know this, and I've known it for years, and I'm glad I'm finally covering this, and that is Here Comes the Sun, which has over 1.8 billion streams. Hey Jude, only 760 million, less than half. And I Want to Hold Your Hand at 533-ish million. I mean, that's crazy. I'm not sure I can pick here because the world has been so saturated with Here Comes the Sun, including, I think, Kisunla, the medication, has a cover of it. I'm kind of sick of it. I'll never not love the song, but I'm a little sick of it. And so because of that, I'm going to go with original. Because I think there are far more number ones that, to me, at least in my heart, rise above Here Comes the Sun. 60s, Beach Boys. Again, so many hits. We're going to go with the number one hits. I Get Around from 1964 and Help Me Rhonda from 1965 and Good Vibrations from 1966. All number one, huge in their day. Streaming, biggest hit is Wouldn't It Be Nice If... Over 718 million streams. Good Vibrations, 540 million. So it's quite a dip. I Get Around, only 255 million streams. And Help Me Rhonda, only 45 million streams. It's hard to pick here. I do love Wouldn't It Be Nice, but I'm going to go with original, just slightly edging out streaming. Okay, The Who. The original, we're going to go with a couple here. My Generation from 1965 and I Can See for Miles, 1967. Which the highest the charting hit was I Can See for Miles. Believe it or not, at number 9. They were never had a number 1. Highest was number 9 in the U.S. Streaming, their biggest hit by far is Baba O'Reilly by 746 plus million. My Generation, huge dip, 271 million, and I Can See for Miles, only 34 plus million. Again, another toughie. The Who's one of my favorites, but I'm gonna go with streaming on this one. Bob Dylan, original, also never had a number 1, by the way. Like a Rolling Stone in 1965, and Rainy Day Women number 12 and 35 in 1966. Both hit number 2. Streaming, though, his biggest hit, Knocking on Heaven's Door at 909 plus million, compared to Like a Rolling Stone's 469 million, and the Rainy Day Women's song, only 22 million. This surprised me, honestly. I didn't think Knocking on Heaven's Door would be his most famous. I'm going to say streaming here, though my favorite Dylan songs are not on either list. I'm going to go with streaming. By the way, in the 60s, Motown and other R&B acts, again, have generally the same top hits. I was all set to include the Supremes and Smokey and whatever. Pretty much the same, original or streaming. 1970s, Queen. Of course, again, this one is as easy and as prominent as the Beatles, and you may know it. This one, if you didn't know the Beatles, you definitely know this one. Original U.S. number 1 hits. There are only two were Crazy Little Thing Called Love in 79, and another one, Bites the Dust, in 1980. Streaming, though, yeah, do I have to say it? Bohemian Rhapsody, 3.2 billion streams. Crazy Little Thing Called Love, 1.238 billion. Way less, a little more than a third. Another one, Bites the Dust, 2.5 billion. So a little better, but not as good as Bohemian Rhapsody. And I'm absolutely going to go with original here. As much as I love Bohemian Rhapsody, enough. All right, so original. Led Zeppelin, their original big hit was Whole Lotta Love, number 4 in 1969. Of course, their big streaming hit is Stairway to Heaven at 1.3 billion. Whole Lotta Love has just over 800 million, so healthy, but not nearly as much. I am for sure going to go with original here, though I'm cool with both. I'm not someone who got sick of Stairway, partly because I didn't listen to it enough and didn't listen to classic rock radio that much, so I never got super sick of it. And there's so many great sections in that song, but I'm going to go with Whole Lotta Love. When I can hear, I'm not going to try to imitate Robert Plant's voice. Yeah. You've been coolin'. That's probably the wrong words. 70s, Earth, Wind, and Fire. What a great documentary, by the way, by Questlove. Original hits, Shining Star and hit number 1 in 1975. And I got to give it to Let's Groove Tonight, or Let's Groove, number 3 in 1981. Streaming, of course, it's Do You Remember? September at 2.34 billion. Let's Groove Tonight, not bad though, but healthy at 886 million, but far less. And Shining Star, only 143 million. I love September. I don't generally get sick of it. I kind of like December, their Christmas version of it too. But I have a real sweet spot for Let's Groove Tonight, or Let's Groove and Shining Star. So I'm going to go with original on this one. Billy Joel. So, of course, had big hits well past the 70s, but you'll see what I'm talking about here. The original in this era, Just the Way You Are in 1977 and My Life in 1978 both hit number 3. And It's Still Rock and Roll in 1980 was his first of many number 1 hits, followed by Tell Her About It in 1983 and We Didn't Start the Fire in 1989. So those were all the big hits. He had many more, but those were the top. Streaming, biggest, Uptown Girl, 1.4 plus billion. It did hit number 3, so it was a big hit in its day, of course, but it is far above the ones that I mentioned, which you'll get to see in a second. But Piano Man, which was not a top 20 hit when it was released, it's still his signature, and it is at 1.35 plus billion. So very close to Uptown Girl. Vienna, also over 1 billion, was not even a single. People usually check that as his best song, especially people who don't like him. I love that song. It's not my top favorite, but I do love it. Compared to We Didn't Start the Fire, 719 million. My Life at 411 million. Just the Way You Are, 378 million. And it's still Rock and Roll, 323 million. Way less than the big hits, Piano Man and Uptown Girl. Streaming-wise, this is tough, of course, being a Billy Joel fan, but I'm going to go with original on this one. So many other big 70s acts have stayed pretty consistent in this realm, including ABBA, Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, the Bee Gees, Stevie Wonder, all pretty much the same, original and streaming. 1980s, Journey. Like the Beatles and Queen in their decades, Journey, it kind of epitomizes what this whole chart streaming dichotomy is about. And in the 1980s, of course, original, their only number one was Open Arms in 1982. Streaming, right? Shit, that was the wrong key. I'm not going to do it. Don't Stop Believing. Over 2.8 billion streams. And Open Arms, only 335 million streams. So many great songs in that era. I'm going to go with original. Much as I'm fine with Don't Stop Believing, but again, it's one of those overplayed songs. And Open Arms is a great song. And Faithfully and, Separate Ways. Prince, again, so much to choose from. His original, When Doves Cry in 1984, was his first of 5 number 1 hits and among 19 top 10 hits. Streaming, Purple Rain. Admittedly, it did hit number 2, of course, in its day, but it far outshines with 803 million streams compared to only 364 million streams for When Doves Cry. I got to go with original on this because Doves was the song that brought me into his world for good. Whitney Houston. Lots here too, of course. The original, I Will Always Love You in 92 was a number 1 all around the world. Streaming, I Want to Dance with Somebody at 1.7 billion is far above I Will Always Love You at 967 million, which is just over half. Nothing comes close to I Want to Dance with Somebody. In her catalog, streaming-wise, I'm going to give the edge to streaming. Duran Duran, the original, Reflex. The Reflex was number 1 in 84. Streaming, though, Ordinary World from the early 90s at 570 million plus is neck and neck with Hungry Like the Wolf at 550 million plus. Both outshine Reflex, which just gets a little over 96 million. I'm going to go with streaming on this. I did enjoy Reflex, but Ordinary World, what a great song. The Cure, original, big love song, number 2, 1989. Streaming, though, there's nearly a tie with Boys Don't Cry at 1.2 billion and Friday I'm in Love with just under 1.05 billion. And honestly, toss a coin. And Love Song doesn't have nearly as much, by the way. Toss a coin, but I'm going to go with streaming because Boys Don't Cry was my first favorite song of theirs. Public Enemy, a surprising one. Original, Give It Up, number 33 in 1994. And of course, Fight the Power in 1989 is iconic and was a number 1 hot rap single. Streaming, the amazingly famous Public Enemy song, Harder Than You Think from 2007. Never heard of it. Good song, though. Has 129 million streams, which is far above tracks like Fight the Power at 59 million. And according to frequent guest Steve Erickson, that's because it's been used a lot for TV sports, especially as the theme song for the UK's Paralympics coverage. And this illustrates one major reason why a top streaming song can be so different, and I'll go over all those reasons in the conclusions. And by the way, it's going to be a slightly longer PODFAST, so it might pod mid, maybe. Bring the Noise, only 42 million. Don't Believe the Hype, 24 million. Far above their biggest hit of the day, Give It Up, at only 8.5 million. I got to go original sauce here. Absolutely original. Phil Collins, lots here, of course. Original, Another Day in Paradise, hit number 1 in 89. But also One More Night in 85, hit number 1. Against All Odds in 84, hit number 1. Streaming, his signature song now is In the Air Tonight at well over 1 billion. Only hit number 19 in the U.S. when it came out. That's far above Another Day in Paradise at 838 million, Against All Odds at 676 million, and One More Night at 290 million. I love them all, but I'm going to go with original here. 1990s. Backstreet Boys. Their original big hit was Quit Playing Games with My Heart, hit number 2 in 1996. Their biggest streaming hit, of course, is I Want It That Way. Tell Me Why, at well over 2 billion. Far above Quit Playing Games at only 376 million. Nothing comes close, but I like them both. I'm going to give it to streaming on this one. It's hard to deny I Want It That Way. They're both great songs. Pearl Jam, the original, setting aside their cover of Last Kiss, which was their highest chart at number 2 in 1999, and their Neil Young collaboration, I Got Id, which was number 7 in 1995. Their biggest full original hits were Spin the Black Circle, Spin the Black, that was a Muppet, number 18 in 1994, and Given to Fly, one of my favorites, number 21 in 1997. None of those could be considered among their signature songs. None. Would you have known those songs? If I said Pearl Jam, what do you think of first? I love Given to Fly, but still, streaming, the three that rise far above are Even Flow at 877 million, Black at 744 million, and Alive at 707 million. And these are all far above Last Kiss at 437 million, Given to Fly at 73 million, Spin the Black Circle at 18 million, and the Neil Young song at only 7 million. Again, Even Flow was kind of my Pearl Jam entry point, so I'm going to go with streaming on this. Tupac, original, How Do You Want It, was a number 1 in 1996. Streaming, double whammy of California Love at 1.15 billion and Hit 'Em Up at 1.02 billion, far above How Do You Want It streams at only 298 million. I'm going to say streaming slightly edges out original here. Dr. Dre, the original, Nothing But G-Thang with Snoop, number 2 in 1993. Streaming, still Dre at 1.9 billion is far above G-Thang at 609 million. And in fact, the next episode and Forgot About Dre are also over 1 billion. I got to go with original on this. I don't know. I prefer it slightly. Last note here, in the 90s, most other 90s acts have the same basic hits from both categories. Why I didn't mention them. 2000s, you're going to notice something in this decade. See if you can spot it. Britney Spears' original, 5 number 1 hits, with Baby One More Time in 99, the most iconic and enduring. Streaming, Toxic has almost 2 billion, with Baby at 1.37 billion and Oops, I Did It Again at 1.2 billion. So big difference there. It's a close one here, but I gotta go with streaming. I love Toxic. The and Hit Me Baby. The Killers, the original, Somebody Told Me. You had a boyfriend that looked like a girlfriend and did something in February of last year. And When You Were Young in 06. Somebody Told Me was 04. And both did the best across all countries, hitting number 3 and 2 in the UK and number 3 and 1 in the US alt. Streaming, Mr. Brightside at 3.27 billion. Somebody Told Me at 1.23 billion, and When You Were Young at only 861 million. So big difference there. And of course, that's their signature song, is Mr. Brightside. It's hard for me because I really did love Somebody Told Me. But I'm going to say streaming because I sing Mr. Brightside with my cover band. Coldplay, original, Viva La Vida in 2008 was one of only 2 number 1 U.S. hits, along with 2021's My Universe, which was their BTS collab. Streaming, it's a 3-way with Yellow at 3.8 billion. Your skin, your only skin and bones. Something Just Like This, love that song, at 3.67 billion. And yes, Viva La Vida at 3.37 billion. While My Universe, only 1.6 billion. I'm going to go with streaming here just slightly. I just loved Yellow. Sorry. That's it for the 2000s. What'd you notice? 2010s. Again, see if you can notice it. Paramore, original. Ain't It Fun hit number 10 in 2014. Streaming, still I'm Into You. Still Into You at 1.2 billion. Misery Business at 1.17 billion. And Ain't It Fun only has 693 million streams. Close here. I'm going to go with streaming because I love Still Into You. Bruno Mars, original, Uptown Funk featuring Mark Ronson was number 1 in 2015. Streaming, there are 5 songs over 3 billion. Die With a Smile with Lady Gaga, Just the Way You Are, Locked Out of Heaven, That's What I Like, When I Was Your Man. And Uptown, 2.69 billion. So you would think that would be at the top. I would. but no. And yet, I'm going to go with original on this. 2020s, no, of course. It's not possible to do this decade because there's no time for, the difference between the original and streaming yet. We'll see what happens. So that's it. That was my list. Let's get to conclusions. So yeah, the thing you might have noticed in the last 2 decades is the closer we got to the streaming era, the more an artist's hits corresponded from both original and streaming. So even by the 2000s, there were fewer artists on the list, 2010s even fewer, and 2020s no one yet. It's important to point out that I left out a bunch of artists whose streaming song was technically different from their historic top song. But again, the difference was statistically insignificant. I'm sure I missed some, so please comment and tell me. Just like I love genres for their expediency and ease of use, the labels, but don't let them confine or define music, I love numbers for the same reasons. They're hard, factual, quantifiable, but they too don't actually define or confine music. That said, they're fun. What's great about this dichotomy of original versus streaming hits is that we get 2 pictures of an artist's success, further illustrating how both our global and personal experiences of the arts are prisms that shoot out lots of answers, some of which don't align. How we, absorb an artist's work is different from the person next to us or person across the globe. Those 2 pictures are an artist's contemporaneous success and their time, and their enduring success, both of which are incredibly valid. Neither one is more important than the other. And we forget, or maybe never knew in the first place, that an artist's rise to fame and biggest successes might not have been what we see as their greatest triumphs now, might not be what we remember them for. And this is one big reason I wanted to do this topic. And the question is why? Why do certain songs rise up and overtake the original hits? Here are some reasons. Number 1, movie, TV, and commercial play. As we mentioned with Public Enemy, it boosts a song's popularity and thus its streams. Number 2, meme and TikTok reviving songs, again, boost the popularity, and it's often even more influential than movies, etc. Number 3, an evergreen event song. They become a part of the zeitgeist because they have a specific cultural and even temporal purpose. September, Christmas songs, etc. Streaming era. Number 4, streaming era listening habits differ from radio era habits. New listeners are not told which songs you're supposed to think are an artist's best. They would only release a certain number of singles back then. Those are the ones that you were exposed to on the radio. Now, you just discover it on your own through streaming or TikTok, etc. And their answers are often different from the original generation's answers. Number 5, there are technical disqualifications. Many streaming hits were not even released as singles, and so couldn't be counted as such in the charts, but it's likely they were still very popular in their day. This may be the stealth biggest reason. Many of the examples I mentioned were because they were not originally released as singles, and they were popular in their day, but weren't pushed as much. And now the fans have their say and say, no, you should have released that one as a single because it's their best song or their favorite. Number 6, the quirk factor. Artists in this category tend to be harder to pin down, the category of dichotomies here, and are often even known for their wide range of styles, which is why their streaming hit is different from their chart hit. While artists whose chart and streaming hits are basically the same tend to read as more uniform, even if some of their catalog goes deeper, or at least they're perceived as more singular, so their chart hits and streaming hits usually correspond. And finally, number 7, the signature song effect. This is one that is the most intriguing to me because it very often speaks to lasting quality. Well, of course, all of this is highly subjective. It is often true that an artist's original biggest hits struck the culture in a way that catapulted them to fame, but that they were maybe too tied to their time or a certain aesthetic, certain ways of production, trends to be lasting hits, novelties, a link to an event or a cultural movement, harder to understand and appreciate out of context. And the songs that end up being streamed more are those that, while they didn't blow people away as much in their time, end up being more timeless and universal. So, a very salient point, again from Steve Erickson, that illustrates how progress often means greater accuracy, no matter how nostalgic we all are for the hits of our day. And I quote him, I'm not sure how reliable Billboard's charts actually are, particularly before SoundScan. Briefly, I had a job in the 90s where I compiled retail sales charts for a music magazine, but I just called up record stores and asked what their top sellers were. There was no proof these figures were accurate. Billboard worked the same way till SoundScan was introduced. The singles charts are distorted because of the fact that radio counts heavily toward chart position. Until the late 90s, songs were ineligible for the Hot 100 unless they were available commercially as singles. Mentioned that before. If streaming existed in the late 80s and early 90s, Public Enemy and NWA probably would have had top 10 hits. Agree with all of that. Steve's points all lead to something I've mentioned several times already, and these numbers are not necessarily definitive or even hard facts because of how they've been manipulated. And whether you're talking about fudged sales reports, fudged radio play reports, payola, groups of people deliberately downloading in excessive numbers, or bot streams deliberately streaming in excessive numbers, or anything that puts a thumb on the scale, it's important to note that these are subjective and we should look beyond the numbers. It's one reason why it's sometimes mind-boggling that a song or an album or even a whole artist becomes popular. And just like with Geese and Wet Leg, two respectable artists who are examples of a widespread practice, this is all driven by money, power, and connection. When you're saying to yourself, how could this person be popular and not another person? You have to look beyond the art. You have to. Fun part, here comes from my picks. Does original or streaming win? I did 27 songs. So let's look at the numbers and see which one won. Did I pick more original songs? Did I pick more streaming songs? Original, 13. Streaming, 14. Streaming just edges out original. I didn't think it would be that close. And that shows how even Steven the world is of music. And how all songs matter, and how I tend to always have a mix of interests, which is why it was closer than I thought it would be. Not discounting old favorites, but being open to the new. Let's also remember through all of this that popularity is fickle, and just because a handful of any particular artist's songs rise to the top, either on charts or streaming, it doesn't mean that they are A, the artist's best material, or B, the definition of that artist's actual output. Or doesn't mean it's your favorite songs. So you need to look beyond. This is all just an exercise in trying to quantify the unquantifiable, as it is with so many things in art, and to supremely illustrate how arbitrary and easily influenced all of this is. So take it all with a grain of salt, and please listen beyond the hits. We get to decide what we like best, and you discover gems in the catalog that no one else talks about. And for me, it is very, very, very rarely that an artist's biggest hits are my favorite songs of theirs. Unless it's an artist I don't love, probably end up going with that one, but because it's so, memorable, whatever. But if it's an artist that I like and love, I'm going to probably pick something else. I wouldn't even say that my band's most streamed songs are my favorites of my songs, and I freaking created them. Which, speaking of my band, the featured song, there are actually two featured songs in keeping with the theme of this episode. Rec has been around over 20 years now, and next year we're going to celebrate the 20th anniversary of our first album, Parts and Labor. So to start the ball rolling on that, I'm going to choose two songs from that album. The first is the song that was the out-of-the-gate hit with fans, and the second is the one that has hands down gotten the most streams across all platforms. You'll hear both at the end of this episode, and can of course stream them by going to nickdimatteo.com/music, where all of the links are, or nickdimatteo.com/discography. The first one, If It Feels All Right, was the big quote-unquote single. It was the most requested live song from that album, and the one that many people who have known Rec that long, who come to see us live, still ask for and remember. It's the one that everyone marked when they first heard Parts and Labor. They said, that was the single. That's got to be the big one. But the second song, also from Parts and Labor, is a song called Gold. And I have no idea why, but this song, I'm talking across all platforms, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, etc., has gotten well over 1 million streams. I don't know why. I like the song. I wouldn't put it in my top 10 faves of my own songs, but people must like it. Somebody likes it. I don't know why. So take a listen. Again, stream these, nickdimatteo.com/music, but then give it a second. After the questions, I'm going to play both songs, If It Feels All Right first and Gold second. And you tell me, can you explain why Gold has gotten far more streams than If It Feels Alright or, frankly, any other song by my band Rec. Questions. Have you noticed this discrepancy between original and streaming among the artists I've mentioned or other artists? Do you tend to like the artist's original chart hit or their streaming hit? Which artist's hits differences were the most shocking to you that you didn't expect? And did I miss any big ones? Of course. I say this all the time. I'd like to know the answers to these and all other questions because, as always, my objectives here are music, conversation, and connection. Thank you for hanging with me for this slightly longer PODFAST, and I will talk to you next week.
If it feels alright to you, alright, then it feels alright to me. We can never foresee. Oh, what's a boy to do when his girl won't come out to play? If it feels alright to you, alright, then it feels alright to me. Yeah, if it feels alright, we can go all night. Baby, all you need is me. If it feels alright to you, alright, then it feels alright to me. If it feels alright, if it feels alright, if it feels alright, yeah, if it feels alright, right, yeah, if it feels alright, yeah, if it feels alright, yeah, if it feels alright. I had a I had a chance to take you to my soul. I had a chance, I took it, now it's gold. Oh, it tingles in my fingers and in my toes. Oh, the jingles I would sing if you could be so like gold. It's gold. I had a chance to feel in every hole. I had a chance, I took it, now it's gone. Oh, it tingles in my fingers and in my toes. Oh, the jingles I would sing if you could be so like gold. It's gold. Now it's gone. Oh, it tingles in my fingers and in my toes. Oh, the jingles I would sing if you could be so